did testify a year ago this month, March of 2023, by Zoom in front of a jury and a judge in a case from Idaho. And the judge was already aware I was going to give testimony on parental alienation. He came right on and said, I don't give a lot of weight to parental alienation. And so I had to think real quick on how I could convince this judge this is not junk science, but bona fide science, without having me thrown off, the stand here, and I can't give any testimony whatsoever. So I said, well, Judge, you know what? I agree with you in part, because it's not published in the DSM-5 TR. It's not published in the ICD-11. However, there's a huge journal article that came out in 2022 that Dr. Jennifer Harmon co-authored, that it was a literature review on this very issue, and they found 213 scientific peer-reviewed journal articles on this issue. That's a huge sample size. And then I said, in addition, I received an email from Dr. Burnett, who's a close associate of mine. We worked a case together. We won from his home state of Tennessee, January of last year, that I had been on for several years. He had just come on the case like late 2022. We both testified in that case with the father. And he got an email from Dr. Ufik. That's Youfik. She is the lead expert on the steering committee of the DSM-5 committee that makes the decisions on what personality disorders are going to get published in the DSM. And she sent an email to Dr. Burnett, who forwarded that email on to me. And she basically said, we don't need to go back to the drawing board and call this parental alienation. It's not going to happen. We're not going to do that because it's already in there. And Dr. Burnett said, what do you mean it's already in there? She said, well, I think you were the one, Dr. Burnett, who lobbied for parent-child relational problem as one of the subtypes of parental alienation. That's in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And he said, yes. She said, so there's no need to call it anything but what's in the manual. You just call it parent-child relational problem. If a judge doesn't like the words parental alienation, because alienation sounds vindictive, it sounds like, you're trying to maliciously estrange a kid from a possibly nurturing, loving parent. We're getting political here. So to get away from that, let's just call it what's already published in there, which is there's a V code for parent-child relational problem. There's also a V code for estrangement. There's also a V code for child psychological abuse. There's also a V code for child affected by parental relationship distress. So all those are already in there. And everybody gets hung up on the words parental alienation. And how do you fix it, right? When you have been estranged from that kid, and 99% of the time judges order what's called reunification therapy. Well, I have a major problem with that terminology, reunification therapy, because really it probably works maybe 50% of the time, if that. And that's because there really is no gold standard evidence-based best practices reunification therapy. It's whatever that therapist thinks is going to work to mend the family. Well, you can't, if somebody's accused of child molestation falsely, how is the targeted falsely accused parent going to mediate that and smoke the peace pipe and work to the 50-yard line with the accusing parent? It's not going to happen, especially if that parent is borderline personality disorder. Because if the alienated parent is borderline personality disorder, they have an intense fear of abandonment. So these are people who protect their children like cubs. They're like tigers protecting their cubs. And they're just not going to back off. So it's Mike Tyson time. It's going to be a war. And so you have to change the belief system of the kid before you can get to reunification. Well, that's going to require a different type of therapy. So it's not just cognitive behavioral therapy that's going to fix that. You have to do what's called schema therapy or cognitive processing therapy with the kid to basically retrain the child's mindset and belief system. So So if you look at the 5-factor model, you know what the 5-factor model is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you look at the 5-factor model that Dr. Burnett authored in 2020, and the first factor is the child rejects the targeted parent. Okay, so the child's gone from disconnect to resist to reject. Actually, the other way around: resist, disconnect, and then reject. So you have 3 stages here. You have mild, moderate, and severe. When you get to the severe stage, the child's rejecting the targeted parent. Dr. Gardner used to call it slight, moderate, severe. Dr. Burnett amended that to mild, moderate, and severe. And so that's the first factor: is the child rejects the targeted parent. I don't want to communicate with you. I don't want to see you. I don't care that a judge has ordered us to reunify. I don't care about that. I'm not going to see you. I'm not going to communicate with you. Don't Zoom up with me. Don't call me. That's it. We're done. Okay, so the second factor is you can prove to the court through audio, video, pictures, perhaps text or emails, that at one time you had a positive relationship with this kid. You had a normal relationship with the kid. You can prove all that. You can show that. Photographs, you can show all that. Then the third factor is the CPS. If you did come under the gun for child abuse and CPS unsubstantiated it, or the court made a finding of fact conclusion of law, it was unfounded or unsubstantiated, meritless, never rose to 51% preponderance of evidence. That's factor number 3, that the abuse never happened. It was maybe not proven false, which is by definition malicious or bad faith. I'm going to get you. I'm going to pick up that phone and call 1-800-96-ABUSE, which is our Florida toll-free hotline in Tallahassee. I'm not going to do that, but I accused you in good faith. I'm a protective mom, a protective parent. I accused you in good faith because I thought my kid was being abused, but it was proven unsubstantiated. That's factor number 3. And then factor 4 and 5 are just the signs, symptoms, and behaviors of the alienated child and the alienated parent are consistent with alienation, those signs, symptoms, and behaviors. And oftentimes they are totally in alignment, totally aligned, the child and the alienator. And that's basically the 5-factor model. Dr. Baker had authored the 4-factor model. Burnett went one beyond that. So that's basically it. Not all cases even get to 4 or 5 factors. You have to try to nip it in the bud quickly, right? So I get a lot of cases where guys are accused or women are accused